The story that they've heard is not my story. There's so much more to my story.
So imagine this. You're being attacked in your own home by someone who says they love you. You're terrified, your kids are terrified, and you know if you don't do something, you or your children might not make it out alive. What would you do? Most of us would say we'd fight back to protect ourselves and our kids. We have self-defense laws for that, right? We're supposed to have the right to defend our lives when we're in danger. But here's actually the hard truth. For many women, especially women of color, fighting back can mean trading one danger for another. Years, even decades, behind bars. Because even though we have self-defense laws and even stand your ground laws in many states today, the system doesn't always see women as victims acting in self-defense, especially when the violence comes from an intimate partner. Think about this. Around 1 in 3 women in the United States will experience intimate partner violence in their lifetime. That's 1 in 3. And when they do fight back to survive, the system often doesn't believe them. In fact, studies show that at least 30% of women nationwide are serving time for murder or manslaughter or acting in self-defense or defending their own loved ones. So how do we exactly defend ourselves or our children or just our loved ones if we're terrified we'll end up in prison for the rest of our lives? We talk a lot about stand your ground laws that allow you to use deadly force if you fear for your safety without the duty to retreat. But what good are these laws if women fighting to stay alive are still getting locked up for decades? Today, we're digging into these questions through the story of Latoya Dinkens, a Georgia woman who spent 25 years in prison, denied parole 7 times after she says she killed her husband in 1999 to protect herself and her kids. And in 2024, she was finally released. How does the system fail women who defend themselves? And what does justice look like when survival itself becomes a crime? One thing is certain, the gavel has fallen. This is Final Judgment. I'm Nichole Mondshein, and this is Final Judgment, a deep dive into the final days, last choices, and chilling moments before execution on Georgia's death row. Some convictions unravel while some sentences are overturned. The evidence has been laid bare, the jury has spoken. But was justice truly served? For some, there's no appeal, no second chances, just the final judgment. But for others, the final judgment isn't so final after all. So how exactly did we get here? How did we end up in a world where a woman can be attacked in her own home, fight to survive, and still end up spending decades behind bars? Now, to understand that, we need to look at how self-defense laws evolved in this country and how stand your ground laws changed what it means to protect yourself, at least on paper. Self-defense is a basic human instinct, or at least we like to think it is, but it is also a legal right. The idea comes back to English common law, which originally said you had a duty to retreat if you could safely escape before using deadly force. Now, over time, though, courts and lawmakers started to recognize that people shouldn't always have to run away if there's somewhere they have the right to be, like their own homes, aka your property. That's where the castle doctrine came in. The idea that your home is your castle and that legally you can use force, even deadly force, to protect yourself and your family there without having to retreat. But in 2005, Florida took things further, passing the first stand your ground law in the United States, expanding that right from your home to anywhere you're legally allowed to be. Today, 38 states have some form of stand your ground laws, including Georgia, which allows people to use deadly force if they reasonably believe that they're in danger, even if they could have walked away. Supporters of these laws say that they empower people to protect themselves. Most supporters correlate these laws with the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, which protects the right of individuals in this country to keep and bear arms for self-defense. However, these laws aren't without criticism as well. Many critics argue that they can encourage unnecessary violence and be applied unevenly, sometimes with tragic results. We've seen these debates in high-profile cases, like the killing of Ahmaud Arbery right here in Georgia, where self-defense claims collided with issues of race, vigilantism, and misuse of force. For those unfamiliar with this case, in 2020, 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery was shot and killed while he was jogging through a neighborhood in Brunswick, Georgia, after being chased by 3 white men who claimed that they suspected him of burglary. They argued they were attempting a citizen's arrest and acted in self-defense, a claim tied to Georgia's stand your ground principles, which allow the use of deadly force if someone reasonably believes it is necessary to prevent harm. However, video of the incident sparked national outrage, and all 3 men were eventually convicted of murder. Similarly, back in 2012, the killing of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin in Florida by George Zimmerman became one of the most high-profile cases tied to these laws. George Zimmerman claimed self-defense under Florida's stand your ground law after he shot Trayvon, who was unarmed and just walking home, sparking national outrage and conversations about racial profiling, gun violence, and how these laws can be misused to justify deadly force, particularly against people of color. Both cases raised critical questions about who gets to claim self-defense and how stand your ground can be applied unevenly, fueling debates about justice and safety right here in America. But there's another side that we don't talk about enough. What happens when women defend themselves against violent partners? Research shows that many women in prison for violent crimes were actually defending themselves or their children from abuse. And this isn't new. We can trace this back for decades. In 1945, Lena Baker, a black woman, was convicted of killing a white man who had imprisoned, assaulted, kidnapped, abused, and threatened her life repeatedly. Lena said she acted in self-defense while trying to escape him. However, an all-white, all-male jury convicted her in a single day, and the state executed her just months later. Decades later, in 2005, Georgia finally granted Lena a posthumous pardon, acknowledging it was a case of self-defense and that her execution was a tragic miscarriage of justice. So how exactly does self-defense work in a system that often doesn't believe women when they say they were fighting for their lives? Today, we're going to look at one of those stories. So let's get into it. Latoya met Otis Dinkens when she was just 13 years old and he was 17. Today, most of us would call that grooming, but back in the 70s and 80s, even the 90s, it was overlooked. And Latoya might have thought it was exciting that an older boy noticed her. But what could a 13-year-old and a nearly grown man really have in common? Not much, except that soon after, Latoya was pregnant and her life was tied to his before she even had a chance to grow up herself. From the very beginning, Otis was controlling and abusive. Latoya spent 14 years living under his violence, physically, emotionally, and sexually. He would punch her in the face, leave her with black eyes, bruises, rape her during her pregnancies, and control where she went and who she could see and talk to. He isolated her. It got to a point where their entire relationship was marked by hatred and violence rather than love and compassion. Now, years later, Latoya would once describe a time when he lifted her up and threw her off a porch while she was 8 months pregnant, then continued to hit and beat on her. She said he often got physical nearly about 10 times a month, so this was occurring a lot, leaving her in fear most days, trapped in a cycle that made her feel like there was simply nowhere out.
I'll never forget this one day that he got so angry with me. He lifted me up waist high and threw me off of a porch while I was 8 months pregnant.
How often did it get physical?
At least about 10 times after a month.
How often were you afraid for your life?
Most of the time.
It got to the point to where I really became a hermit. When I did start fighting him back to protect myself, that made it worse. I was already good at trying to cover it up and making excuses. And although at the time I did not feel that our children were in danger, I felt that he would have brought harm or danger to them to get at me. I really tried to tough it out with my husband. His father was not present in his home. My father was not present in the home. So I thought I was doing the right thing by staying with him so our children could have both parents.
But by 1999, Latoya was exhausted, desperate, and ready to leave. She wanted a normal life for herself and for her kids. So she finally realized enough was enough and decided that she was going to leave and divorce Otis. And then came January 30th, 1999. That day, everything reached a breaking point. Latoya and Otis got into another argument, but this time about her trying to leave with the family van. Latoya says that Otis disabled the car so that she couldn't escape and refused to let her go. She says she took a long hour-and-a-half walk to just clear her head before coming back home, hoping maybe things would just calm down by themselves. But when she returned, the tension was still there, thick in the air. She knew she couldn't live like this anymore. This wasn't living, and she owed it to her kids and herself to provide a better life for them and for her. But that's not exactly what happened. Otis shoved her into the sofa. Latoya, terrified and tired of the years of beatings, grabbed a knife to protect herself. And then she did something many people would do. She called 911. But she told the dispatcher she was going to kill her husband. And just 2 minutes later, she called 911 again, telling them that she had stabbed her husband. Latoya says that during the fight, Otis had grabbed her, and they struggled over the knife before she stabbed him once in the side, piercing his lung. Otis would die 3 days later from that single wound. But to this day, many people still question why she called 911 the first time anyway. Why call if it was an accident? Why warn them if she didn't want this to happen? Maybe it was a cry for help. Maybe it was her last desperate plea for someone to step in before it was too late. Or maybe, deep down, she knew she couldn't take it anymore and was warning them about what she felt like she had to do to survive. But speculation aside, Latoya didn't run. She didn't try to hide from what she did. She waited for the police to arrive, telling them that she was tired of living like this, that she just wanted a normal life for herself and for her kids. She felt like she had no other option. Despite years of documented abuse, despite witnesses who testified about the violence she endured, despite an expert saying and confirming that Latoya was suffering from battered person syndrome, Latoya was indicted for malice murder, felony murder, and possession of a knife during the commission of a felony. In August 2001, she was convicted of felony murder and sentenced to life in prison. But Latoya's legal battle was filled with obstacles from the start. She spent 3 years in Gwinnett County Jail before her trial, and during that time, only met with her attorneys twice. She didn't even get to meet with an expert on battered woman syndrome until she demanded it herself. And even then, it was only one meeting. And at trial, her lawyer couldn't bring in a key witness, a woman from Louisiana who could have testified that Otis, Latoya's husband, had a history of abusing other women as well, not just Latoya. And on top of that, the judge supposedly acted more like a prosecutor at times, shutting down a defense witness from sharing testimony about the abuse by calling it hearsay before the prosecution even objected. After Latoya was convicted in 2001, she and her legal team fought for a new trial, arguing that her original lawyer didn't do enough to defend her. One key point was that her attorney failed to bring in that particular out-of-state witness who could have testified about the abuse Otis had inflicted on Latoya and other women in Louisiana, which could have shown a pattern of violence to support her self-defense claim. But here's the issue. They never actually got this witness to testify even during the new trial hearing. Without the witness speaking directly or providing a legally acceptable statement, it was impossible for Latoya to prove that this testimony would have changed the outcome of her trial. Latoya's team also argued that the judge overstepped during the trial by interrupting witnesses and questioning them in front of the jury in a way that felt biased. But after reviewing the trial transcripts, the appeals court found that while the judge did ask questions and clarify testimony, it wasn't enough to show that he was taking sides or influencing the jury's opinion on Latoya's guilt. So because of all this, in 2006, the court denied Latoya's appeal for a new trial, ruling that there wasn't enough proof that her defense was hurt by these issues and her conviction and life sentence remained in place. It's hard to imagine trying to prove you acted in self-defense when your own trial feels stacked against you. For Latoya, the lack of access to her lawyers, the missing testimony about her husband's abuse, and a judge who cut off witnesses left her fighting an uphill battle from the start. After her conviction, that uphill battle didn't end. Latoya was denied parole multiple times over the years, each denial another blow to a woman who had already spent decades behind bars for protecting herself. She missed birthdays, graduations, and moments with her children and her grandchildren that she could never get back. Despite the uphill legal battle, Latoya never stopped fighting for her freedom. But from the very beginning, her defense team felt like the jury never truly understood the full picture of her past. Her lawyer, Janice Mann, later shared that the trial focused only on what happened the night of the stabbing, while ignoring the years of abuse Latoya endured. It was like the courtroom was zoomed in on a single moment, zooming in on that 911 call that she had made to dispatch, completely missing or regarding everything that led up to it.
She started a relationship with him when she was 13 years old and he was 17. She gave birth to their first daughter before she was 14. When my client said, "I'm tired," what she meant was, I'm tired of being abused. I'm tired of having to fight for my life. I'm tired of not being able to get away from an abusive life that I've been living since I was 13.
Later, the Georgia Coalition Against Domestic Violence stepped in to help Janice gather documentation of the harm that Latoya had experienced throughout her marriage. Now, this evidence was crucial in convincing the parole board to finally take a second look at her case. And Latoya even said it herself. Throughout all those years, the Georgia courts never truly considered the reality of her backstory. Years of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse at the hands of her husband that pushed her to the point where she felt like she had no choice but to fight for her life.
The state gave me life. God has given me life lessons. We will all fall at times, but I assure you that these life lessons will remain. No one stays the same. When I called authorities for help, not once did I feel like they've done all that they can do. Never was I asked about past abuse, rape, choking, or did I feel like he would kill me. He charged at me, and so my defense mechanism automatically kicked in because I was so prone to being hit all the time. I saw the crazy in him, basically like, this is just it. You have to deal with it. You're not going anywhere. I recall going into the kitchen. I called the police and I told them, come and get my husband before one of us gets hurt. The DA twisted it up by saying she told us she was going to kill her husband, and she did. My truth is what led to my incarceration.
In 2022, as Latoya became eligible for parole, supporters launched the #BringLatoyaHome campaign to push for her release. The Debbie Co-op Survivor Defense Project, in partnership with the Mann Law Group, submitted a detailed memo to Gwinnett County District Attorney Patsy Austin-Gadsden, urging her to send a letter of support to the Georgia State Board of Pardons and Paroles on Latoya's behalf. For those who don't know, the Debbie Co-op is a grassroots coalition of Georgia community members seeking to liberate criminalized survivors of gender-based violence. And although the DA initially seemed open to supporting Latoya's release, she did not respond to the memo, even after multiple follow-ups. Meanwhile, the campaign encouraged the public to email the DA directly to apply a little bit of public pressure, hoping this community effort would help bring Latoya home after more than 2 decades behind bars. But despite becoming eligible for parole in 2022, Latoya's freedom was denied again in October of that year, her 4th parole denial. This was a heavy blow to her supporters, especially since Gwinnett County District Attorney Patsy Austin-Gadsden, who had previously appeared to be open to supporting Latoya's release, never actually submitted a letter of support despite repeated calls and follow-ups. The Georgia Board of Pardons and Paroles claimed that Latoya had not served enough time, even though she had already spent more than 20 years in prison, away from her children and community. Following this denial, Latoya's supporters continued to monitor her situation at the Arendelle State Prison, especially after learning that she became ill with a bacterial infection due to suspected water contamination at the facility. Although Latoya received antibiotics and began to recover, the prison administration denied any contamination issues, adding to concerns for her safety. And then in November 2022, Latoya's community held a reflection event to strategize next steps, leading to a long-term public campaign in 2023 aimed at telling Latoya's story and building broader support for her release. The campaign planned multiple phases of advocacy with the goal of culminating in an in-person community event in June or July of that year to publicly demonstrate the depth of Latoya's community support and continue pressuring the district attorney to support her freedom. But after being denied parole so many times, 7 times, Latoya's fight for freedom finally broke through. In October 2023, the Georgia Board of Pardons and Paroles granted Latoya parole, and she was then moved to the Arundel Transitional Center in January 2024 to prepare for re-entry. And then on September 16, 2024, after 25 years in prison and at the age of 53 years old, Latoya Dinkens finally walked out of her prison and walked into her freedom. Her release wasn't just the end of her time behind bars. It was the beginning of a new chapter for her, a chance to rebuild the life that was stolen from her the day that she had chose between her safety and her freedom, a life that was stolen from her nearly 2 decades prior.
This is amazing. I can't even describe how I feel right now, but I'm so glad to be free. The story that they've heard is not my story. There's so much more to my story. The rest of my life is going to be about helping people get to where I am today, and that's on the other side.
She finally got the release that she deserved for so many years.
Despite the Gwinnett County District Attorney never writing a letter of support, the relentless efforts of over 1,800 community members and years of organizing under the hashtag Bring Latoya Home campaign finally paid off. Latoya was able to return home to her family and community, which now included her 3 daughters and 13 grandchildren. I've been waiting for this day for so long, and I'm not going to say I thought it would never come, because I knew it would. I just had to keep holding on to faith and be patient. I'm so ready to see my family and face the world. With all the challenges that I've been through on the inside, I know I'll make it outside. Latoya also wrote a note to everyone who supported her and her campaign throughout the years. To all my supporters, my God, this day has finally arrived. I first thank God for the opportunity to have a do-over, the opportunity to have a life I never had, to be not only a mother, but grandmother and great-grandmother. Thank you for your support, prayers, and encouragement throughout the years. I am forever grateful for you have seen me through. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Thank God I am free. This is a new beginning for me and the ones to follow. Thank you and gratitude. Latoya will remain on parole for the rest of her life, but now she finally has a chance to live freely, rebuild, and reclaim her story on her own terms. It's important to note that while Latoya was paroled and is finally free, she was not pardoned. A pardon recognizes a wrongful conviction and clears a person's record, while parole simply allows someone to serve the rest of their sentence under supervision in the community. Latoya is still considered guilty in the eyes of the law, but she will remain on parole for the rest of her life. Now, this difference matters because while Lena's pardon came too late to save her life, it acknowledged the injustice that she faced. And Latoya's story shows that even when a woman finally wins her freedom, the system still holds on to her, reminding us how much work remains to truly secure justice for survivors. As the Marshall Project put it, Latoya Dinkens says she's been robbed of her life twice. First, by the man who violently abused and controlled her for over a decade, starting when she was just a teenager. And the second time, by the state of Georgia, when it put her in prison for killing him in self-defense. In July 2025, Georgia's Survivor Justice Act, House Bill 582, officially became law, making a major step forward for survivors of domestic abuse who have been convicted or accused of crimes connected to their abuse. This groundbreaking law allows survivors to present evidence of their trauma during sentencing or request resentencing, offering fair treatment, hopefully, and more opportunities to argue self-defense. Now, had this law been in place during Latoya's case, it could have drastically shortened her sentence, potentially reducing it to as little as 10 years, allowing her to gain a decade of her life back. But instead, Latoya served 25 years behind bars for defending herself against her abusive ex-husband. The bill, sponsored by Republican Representative Stan Gunter and passed overwhelmingly by Georgia's legislature, was signed by Governor Brian Kemp after a near unanimous support. Republican Representative Stan Gunter said this:
"This is not a get-out-of-jail-free card. They still have to serve some portion of the sentence looking at the whole picture. We're just getting bits and pieces of it. And it wasn't enough to make a good, clear decision on how to treat these people."
So justice delayed better than justice denied.
Correct.
And Senator Bo Hatchett, another Republican who championed the bill, added this statement: House Bill 582 would prevent survivors from serving long sentences for conduct needed for their own survival. It would allow Georgia's criminal law to catch up with society's modern understanding of domestic violence dynamics. The law requires judges to reduce sentences for crimes linked to abuse. So, for example, if family violence contributed to a crime punishable by life, judges must impose a sentence between 10 and 30 years unless prosecutors agree to less. For other felonies, sentences cannot exceed half the maximum usual term. Those already incarcerated may apply for resentencing. Ellie Williams, the coalition's legal director, said this: "We only got 3 dissenting votes the entire time, which sends such a strong message to survivors in our state that we take their experience seriously. We value them, that their voices are heard, that they're safe, and the people care about seeing actual justice and healing."
It gives people an incredible amount of hope that they have not had until there's not only a pathway for me to get out, but what I hear from them too is it affirms that someone believes me.
Latoya reflected on her long sentence and said that she felt like she deserved to serve some time, acknowledging that, but not 25 years worth. She also hopes that the new law will prompt a fresh look at her case, as in her words, she wants a fair chance at rebuilding her life.
I felt I deserved to serve some time, but not 25 years.
What do you want Georgia's new law to do for you?
Examine the facts and determine whether I should be off for parole. I want a fair chance at rebuilding my life.
Georgia now joins a growing list of states, including Oklahoma, Illinois, New York, and California, that have enacted similar laws to protect survivors of abuse who find themselves accused or convicted of crimes related to their trauma. The Survivor Justice Act offers a model for other states looking to ensure that justice accounts for the complex realities of domestic violence and provides survivors with a path toward healing and fair treatment moving forward. This law will impact hundreds of women across Georgia's prisons, many of whom, like Latoya, were punished harshly for acts tied directly to their survival and abuse. It represents a vital shift towards justice and mercy for survivors of domestic violence statewide. These days, Latoya is a beloved mother and grandmother, spending her time reconnecting with her daughters and grandchildren. After more than 2 decades apart, she was finally able to celebrate the holidays with her family in 2024, a milestone she had longed for what seemed like eternity. Latoya is now using her newfound freedom to support other domestic violence survivors. "The rest of my life is going to be about helping people get to where I am today, and that's on the other side," she said. "I want to make sure that I can remain a face for domestic violence and that I can help support the women that are still on the inside, because I feel like they all deserve a second chance, just like I've been given today."
I am Latoya Dickens. I am a mother, grandmother, a great-grandmother, proud to be a strong survivor, and blessed to be 4 months free of incarceration. When I called authorities for help, not once did I feel like they've done all that they can do. Never was I asked about past abuse, rape, choking, or did I feel like he would kill me. It has to be a better way to protect women and children from domestic violence. We need more attorneys that will go the extra mile and present a survivor as a survivor and not a defendant. Please, 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 I beg, open your eyes.
Now in the process of reacclimating to society, Latoya is determined to build a new life on her own terms. In March 2025, she purchased her own LLC to start a cleaning service, marking an important step forward toward economic independence. She also announced plans to take classes to become a certified peer specialist, aiming to use her experiences to guide and uplift others facing similar challenges. To help Latoya in this transition, a GoFundMe reentry fund has been set up by her supporters to provide essential resources as she rebuilds her life outside of prison. This fund ensures that she has the resources to regain stability and continue her journey toward a bright, stable future. Latoya's story is not just one of survival. It's a powerful testament to resilience, hope, and the transformative power of second chances.
I'm happy to be home, but I'm not just home. I want everyone else to be home with me. And the people that are home, I want to be sure that they never have to walk in the shoes that I walked in. So I'm hoping and praying that one day me showing up, that I can say something to help someone not have to go through what I went through in life.
After more than 25 years behind bars, Latoya is finally living the life she was denied for so long. She is determined to live her best life as a grandmother, finding peace and joy in the moments that matter most. Her release marks not just an end to decades of unjust incarceration, but the beginning of a hopeful new chapter, one filled with healing, reconnection, and the opportunity to give back to society as well as others. Latoya's resilience and strength shine as she dedicates herself to reclaiming her place in the world, proving that even after immense hardship, a full and meaningful life is still possible. And she is ready to live out the rest of her life in peace and dignity, surrounded by those who love her the most. Not only is Latoya's story a powerful reminder of the importance of justice, compassion, and second chances, but it's also a powerful reminder of the countless women whose lives have been forever altered by violence and injustice. For decades, Latoya lived in the shadow of abuse, only to face a second captivity, this time behind prison walls for defending herself. Her release marked not just a personal victory, but a beacon of hope for survivors everywhere. And now, with the passage of the Georgia Survivor Justice Act, Latoya's experience stands to transform the lives of so many others trapped in a similar cycle or cycles of pain and punishment. This law offers a lifeline, a chance to be seen and heard beyond their crimes, to have their trauma fully recognized, and to receive fair sentences that reflect the truth of their circumstances. Though many studies show that the vast majority of survivors are women being abused by men, according to the Georgia Commission on Family Violence, female offenders face 6% higher arrest rates than male offenders in family violence incidences in Georgia specifically. This stark reality underscores the urgent need for laws like this, laws that address the disproportionate impact on women survivors caught in the justice system. It is a profound step forward, not only for Georgia, but as a model for states across the nation and around the world, grappling with how to treat survivors of abuse caught in the criminal justice system. This law challenges us to rethink justice, not as punishment alone, but as healing, understanding, and restoration. Latoya's story echoes through Lena Baker's. Both were Black women criminalized for defending themselves against violence. Both were punished by a system that too often sees women's survival as a crime. And while Latoya lived to walk free, her freedom is part of the same long fight to ensure that survival is not treated as a crime, and that women's lives, safety, and freedom are valued. Who knows how many women at this very moment are facing the same impossible choice Latoya once did? How many are waiting for a second chance to reclaim their lives, their dignity, and their futures? Latoya's journey shines a light on the urgent need for compassion in our laws, and the powerful change that happens when we listen to survivors' truths. Her story is far from unique, but now it can help rewrite the future for her and for countless others who deserve nothing less than freedom, justice, and hope. Now, one thing is certain. While the final judgment has been made in Latoya Dinkens' case, her story is far from over.